Preacher needs time. Rumor has it she's long-winded. At least that's what Pastor Chuck says.
No, she don't be like me.
Just kidding. It has been a tradition. How many know traditions aren't a bad thing?
Amen.
It's traditionalism that's a problem. When our tradition controls what we do beyond the Word of God, then we got a problem. But it's been our tradition to have a mother speak on Mother's Day.
Yes.
And so this year, DaNean Brown has a word for us from the Scripture. DaNean, what bless you today?
Happy Mother's Day, and it is a blessing, a privilege, and an honor to be before you this morning.
Amen.
So let's pray. Heavenly Father, I just thank you for today. I thank you for your grace. I thank you for your mercy. I thank you that you have chosen me this morning to witness to your people and to show of your your unforgiving and your kindness, love. And I just thank you and praise you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I can't hardly hear her. I'm sitting.
Put her in the veins.
Yeah.
Today's message is inspired by my mother, who spoke on Mother's Day in 2006, and God gave her the acronym for the word mother.
All right.
Moving on towards heaven's eternal riches. So in that case, you're all mothers, because believers, that's what we should be doing every day.
Amen.
All right.
The first letter is M for moving. We as believers should always be moving, growing, and abiding in God.
All right.
Amen.
And I have some definitions, so some of the definitions I might have left off a few, but you get the gist of it. Moving means in motion. Growing means undergoing natural development by decreasing in size, and 2, becoming greater over a period of time. So isn't that Christianity? Should
Yeah.
we be growing and becoming greater over a period
Absolutely.
of time? Abiding is lasting a long time.
Amen.
Christianity is not for the weak. It's not for the faint. But if we as believers are not moving, growing, and abiding in God, we will become stagnant,
Yeah.
which means dull, sluggish, or showing no activity at all.
All right.
Is your walk stagnant?
Huh.
Hopefully not. But if it is, why would any unsaved person want to serve this great God we talk about if that's what our walk is showing?
All right.
The second letter is O for on. The word on means physically in contact with and supported by.
All right.
2, indicating a continuation of a movement or action. God is with us. He supports us even when we don't feel like He is. That
Yeah.
song says, He is with us.
Yeah.
Hallelujah, we are not alone.
That's right.
Sometimes we may stumble along the way, but we have to keep moving on.
Yes.
I'll be reading from Psalms chapter 37, verses 23 and 24. If the Lord delights in a man's way, He makes his steps firm. Though he stumble, he will not fall. For the Lord upholds him with His hand.
All right.
The third letter is T for towards. Towards means in the direction of. Which direction are you moving towards?
All right. All right.
The straight and narrow path towards eternal life, or the wide path that leads to destruction and hell. Matthew chapter 7, verses 13 and 14 says, Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate, and narrow the road that leads to life, and only few will find it.
All right.
Our steps are ordered of God. And it amazes me at times when you're doing whatever you need to do, and all of a sudden it clicks, and you can see God's hand in it.
Amen.
You think you were doing just what came natural to you, or what you were supposed to be doing, which you were, but it was also God's plan, excuse me. Being a stay-at-home mom was wonderful, and I do miss it at times. I always felt like there's benefits to every grade level that your child needs you, whether they're newborn or in high school. But when I started working, it was only to be temporary for the summer. But as the case was coming to an end, they had another client for me, which was like 6 hours a week and a few miles from home. A few months later, I was back at the old case as well. And I do have to say, I do like my clients. They are a blessing. But God knows us all. And one of my strong suits is that I don't like to quit. Like, I'll just be like, oh, I really don't want to do it. And I'll complain up until I'm there and I get it done. But he knows no matter what that I will stick it through, even if I'm kicking and screaming. But it's also hard because I've done that before I had Chantel, so I know what it's like. It's hard to let people in your home. Your home is your castle. Then there's valuables. People snoop, people steal, people aren't dependable.
Right.
And then you also need somebody that's reliable, that's going to show up when they say they're going to show up to take care of your loved one. But it's not just the clients either. You have to interact with their family. So the one lady, they both have their challenges and there's pros and cons, but the one lady, I really enjoy talking to her because we talk about God, and she's 93 years old, but we just have the greatest conversations.
All right.
And the one thing I said, I like about you, I said, we could talk about God and we could talk about this, and she says, well, what I like about you, she said, you have great faith. And they're very accommodating, you know what I mean, for me. And I was praying to see if I should work like more hours, and I felt like I had the ladies pray and I didn't get an answer yet. But I've been covering like both shifts because the one lady's been sick, and I've been working like 6 days a week, and it was like between church or volleyball, like 7 days a week there's something to do. And it made it crystal clear that that's not what I want to do. I mean, even I don't want to do the 5 days. I told them I'll help here and there. But besides having a paycheck, it's been a blessing. But it also relieved me from other duties, because families depended on me for things. And one of the things was like my mom, she knows no matter what, I have her back. But it also caused her to have to reach out to my brothers for them to help. And they stepped up to the plate without a doubt.
All right.
But if I was home, they wouldn't have never
All right.
done it. Other stuff would arise and I couldn't do because of work. Winter was tough because I just wanted to stay in my bed and sleep, which wasn't always a good thing for my mental state, because after a while, I really didn't want to go out unless I had to. But it also helped me prioritize my time with my crafts, because then I couldn't stay up all night working, get her off, and I could just sleep in the bed and lay there till she was getting home from school. My bed in my bedroom, as Chuck knows, is my happy place. I get there, I'm like, I'm happy. Sometimes I'll close the blinds. He's like, open up the blinds, let some light in. But I like it dark in there sometimes. But my point is, what I thought was just helping out temporary turned out, and it's turning out to be so much more than what I could have imagined. A lot of people say don't get old, but to be old is truly a blessing.
Yeah.
As we know, a lot of people don't get to live to be old.
Right.
They don't live to be a teenager. They
Right.
don't live to their 20s. You know what we're living in and what we
Right.
see. And like I said, with the 93-year-old, her mind is sharper than a whistle. She's like a history book because she's been through so many eras. And her daughter, she sometimes is like, oh, she tells the same stories over and over. And I get it, because that's your mother. You've been with her for all your life. But I told her, I said, I really don't mind. I enjoy it. Then she also reminds me of my grandmother, because they share the same last name. They share the same middle name. And her daughter's going through some things that I would have thought she would be like emotional, but she's kind of hard. Like my grandma. I mean, she's not a real emotional person. But the next letter is H for heaven. Heaven is a beautiful place where only believers get to go when we leave this place called earth. A place where no sin has place there, no pain, no sorrow. So this earth, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of sorrow. And it's like when we sometimes when we're happy, sometimes we don't always enjoy it because people be looking like, what's going to happen next? Where's the bad? But when we're going through the bad times, then we say, oh, I can't wait for this happiness. When we're bad, we like focus too much on the negative. I'll be reading from Revelation chapter 21, verse 4. He will wipe every tear from your eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, hallelujah, or pain. Amen. For the old order of things has passed away.
Thank you, Lord.
He makes all things new.
Yes, he
so
does.
old is gone.
Yeah.
Who likes new? There, we don't have to get upcycled, gently used. We get new. And we're not going to deteriorate. Or what do they say? Diminish over time. I'll also be reading from Revelation chapter 22, verses 1 through 5. Then the angel showed me the river of water of life, as clear as crystal. And crystals are beautiful.
Yeah.
Flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb, down to the middle of the great street of the city. On each side of the river stood the tree of life, bearing 12 crops of fruit, yielding its fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree are for the healing of the nations. No longer will there be any curse. The throne of God and of the Lamb will be in the city, and his servants will serve him. They will see his face, and his name will be on their foreheads. There will be no more night. They will need no light of lamp or the light of the sun, for the Lord God will give them light, and they will reign forever and ever.
Amen.
Can you imagine, like, we see beautiful bodies of water, but we've never seen crystal clear water. So when you think of a crystal sparkles, it shines, and that's how the water's going to be. I've seen some beautiful water, but none, like I said, as clear as a crystal. And God, he's the light. Like, can you imagine in all the brightness, sometimes when that flash or something, you're like, but we won't need no light because being in God's presence is all the light that we need. His presence is and will be radiant. Saints, let us not grow weary in well-doing. Heaven is awaiting us. The fifth letter is E for eternal. Eternal means lasting or existing forever. Valid for all time. Essentially unchanging. Our walk with God should be lasting forever. And it endures many highs and many lows. You know, so many times we want to give up, but we can't. So many times people get saved and we get on fire for God and we walk away.
Yeah.
Do you walk away from your job and never get a job again? Some people walk away from their marriage, but people who endure hardships with your marriage, do you walk away from your marriage? Do you walk away from your children? Do you walk away from your mother? Do you walk away from your friends? There's hardships. But we have to endure for a long time.
Yeah.
And, you know, so many times we have to pray. You know, we do need leaders, and God, I've learned over time, you know, just because it's a right thing doesn't mean it's a right thing for you. And you do have to pray and seek God.
Right.
But so many times, if God calls you, he will equip you. And people will say, well, been there, done that. And for me, like, I used to teach children's church, and I don't. But if God calls me to, I will.
Right.
When you're a pastor, as a rule, you don't retire. You have to be done when God tells you to be done. Now, if your health is failing and you talk to God, then God will make it away. So when God has called you to a position, you can't walk away.
Right.
When he's called you to a church, you can't walk away.
Right.
The pastor's going to make you mad. The member of the church is going to make you mad. That's life. But that's when you got to go to God, ask for forgiveness so you can move on.
Right.
Pray for whoever offended you and stay where you need to stay.
Right.
We're lazy. We want things handed to us, and we have to work for. We have to endure a long time. It's not about what we want, it's about what he wants.
Right.
Amen.
I'll be reading from James chapter 1, verses 2 through 5. Consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Perseverance must finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. And if you lack wisdom, if any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to him. So one day me and Chuck was talking, so it's my turn to put him on the spot. You never know, being a pastor's wife, everyday living situation can turn into a message. So. No, but we had a conversation one day. He said, "Do you like challenges?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, I like a challenge." And just because life, I'm like, I just want smooth riding. Well, life has been challenging. And so it was my turn to say, "Don't you like a challenge?" No. I said, "Yeah, we had this conversation." "Well, I don't remember that." I said, "Oh, you did?" I said, "I can't think about what we were talking about. But, oh, yeah, you said you like a challenge." But I said, "But you don't like this challenge."
All right.
And here's me dealing with something we both had to deal with, but it was as if it wasn't happening to me. I had to encourage him and just remind him, this is a part of life. We have to be challenged at times. And then I thought about it. I said, I guess depending on what it is, I do like a challenge to a point, but not where I'm just like frustrated and I can't get through it. If it just keeps having us to start over or have to keep dealing with it and my mind keeps racing over and over, because I think. And I think too much and my mind is like constantly racing, so stuff like that just adds to it.
Yeah.
But life is challenging. The Bible tells us to consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Perseverance is persistence in doing something difficulty or delay in achieving success. I'm going to read that again. The definition of perseverance is persistence in doing something difficulty or delay in achieving success.
All right.
When we do something, we want success instantly.
That's right.
Or we want to do it without difficulty. And I know, like, once you get over it, you get better at it, but sometimes we don't want to go through that.
Right.
Well, during this message, when Pastor asked me to do it, and this time it was so different. He sent me an email and says, "Oh, I want you to preach." And I'm like, okay. Because the last time he asked me, I didn't feel like it was my time. And I thought, I said, let me pray, let me see God. And it wasn't time for me to speak. So this time I said, yeah. So then he seen me, a couple weeks ago, and he said, "You're preaching Mother's Day." I was like, I know. He said, "I'm just checking. We haven't talked." And this time it was so different because I wasn't worried. I wasn't anxious. I didn't know what I was preaching. And then I had one part, and I'm like, well, how is this going to fit? Because I was getting stuff from there, but I'm like, I'm not worried. And this week I said, okay, I'm going to get my stuff together. Well, I'm a little bit old school, so I was like starting to do my message, and I'm typing everything up, and I'm like, I can't really get this. So I was getting frustrated after a while, and then I said, okay, I'm going to put it away, and I'll take it to work with me. So then I get to work, and then I start typing, and it's like, you need, you're offline. I'm like, when has Word ever been like online? So I had to get the password, put the information in, then I start typing. But for some reason, I was trying to save it. I'm used to like file, save as, you put it in. So I was like, you don't have to put save as, because it's saved it automatically. So I'm trying to type, and it would freeze, so I almost have to hit the letter like so many times. I was like frustrated with that. Then I said, okay, because I always write my message out on paper first. I'm not one of the ones that type it on there. I just like pen and paper. So I ended up finishing, I think I was finished with most of it. I said, and I put her on sleep, and I said, okay, when I get home, I'll check everything and finish. So after my long day on Friday, I go home, and I sit at the table, and I'm looking. Well, first I was telling Chuck, I'm like, I'm sick of this computer, and blah, blah, blah. And then when I look, and I see, like, I had so many sheets, I only seen like one sheet. So where's this message at? I'm like, please don't tell me it's wrong. Because this thing said it's saving, like, all the time. Well, long story short, I looked up here, it was gone. So I'm mad at Pastor. I'm mad at Chuck. I'm like, he can preach, I'm like, Chuck can preach this. I was like, Pastor better not ask me again. Like, I was angry at the world. I know it wasn't Pastor's fault. So then I said, okay, so I was telling Chuck, and he's like, well, I usually look up here, and it's usually there. And I swear I looked down the thing, I couldn't find it, but of course, since he's sitting here, I found a word. So then I got the word without the online part, and I tried to type it. Okay. So then, why can't you just, I'm used to, like I said, just file in a box coming up, and you just put in what you want to save it under. So then you have to put, where do you want to save this at? Like, it's too much. So he showed me where to save it. So I said, okay, so I start typing again. And it's lost. I was crying. I was like, I'm done. So I was like, I'm going to bed. I said, good night. My mom was there, my brother. I said, I'm done. If I could have killed somebody, they would have been dead. So I go to bed, and it was like, I said, God, I said, you knew. I said, this didn't have to happen. I said, you could have saved it.
Yep.
You knew what I was doing, like, why? And then I said, if it's going, I might just get up there and freestyle. Chuck was like, well, go ahead. I'm like, so I tried to go to bed, but you can't escape God. So my mind is just like, so then I said, you know what? Sometimes when I'm trying to watch a little movie on my phone, or my little, series I like to watch since we don't have cable. So I have to borrow other people's their passwords so I can stream it through my phone and watch it. So I said, I'm going to watch this so I could go to sleep. But then it was like I was charged, and then I couldn't go to sleep, so I went downstairs and got me a little snack. And he was like, can I show you something? I said, no, I'm done. Okay. So I go back upstairs, and I'm watching. I can't go to sleep still. He comes up, he goes to sleep. So I finally go to sleep. And then I woke up, early in the morning, because then I'm like, I have to go to work tomorrow. Then there's a birthday tomorrow. Then she has to go to the store and print these pictures up. And God, you know all the stuff I have to do. And I can't really call off from work and blah, blah, blah. So I get up early and I'm typing everything. And I'm like, okay, no, because I said, I'm done with the computer. I'm just going here and write. But I'm like, I have to still try to write neat and not X out. So as I'm writing, I forget a whole nother definition or a whole nother paragraph. So I'm like, I guess I have to go back to the computer, because for me, I didn't want to put an arrow down here and I'll have to start all over if it's not neat. So I said, okay, let's go back to this computer. Went back up there, typed it, everything. Okay, I'm finally done. I'm making sure I'm saving it. Okay. I try to print it. It's not printing.
I fixed it wrong, everything.
I said, okay. So I told Chuck, he was like, I said, Chantel, hit the printer button. Well, you shouldn't have to do all of that. He said, can I give it a try? I was like, sure. Because at this point, I said, if it doesn't print, I'm like, God, you must want me to just go up here and freestyle. I'll have a little scripture, I'll try to remember, but that's where I was at this point. So, but Chuck, he fixed it for me, and he printed it. So, but I said, for God, yes. I said, but for God, it's perseverance.
Right.
And I felt bad in the morning because I don't know. I was so angry at God. I was mad. But then when I woke up, I was humble. And I said, the song that he put on my spirit was, I raise a hallelujah in the presence of my enemies.
All right.
And that song just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Because the the anger I had. I just felt bad because then my mom was like, you know, God just wants to use you. And I didn't even see that. I didn't even see that big picture. And it was like, Pastor always said you can get attacked after preaching, but it was like, this was like beforehand. And it was like, this was like so easy. This was like peaceful. I'm like, I wasn't even really nervous. And I didn't really get nervous until like this morning. But I was just like, God, like, why did you let this happen? But he wanted me to experience firsthand again on perseverance and being persistent in doing something difficulty or delayed in achieving success. But I did it, and I'm here.
Amen.
I had to keep going in spite of the difficulty in achieving the success of being finished with my message. Parenting, marriage, being saved, your job, you fill in the blank. Take some perseverance and patience.
Yeah.
God blesses us along the way, but eternity is our ultimate reward.
Yeah.
Pastor and Kathy gave the leaders a book called Spiritual Leadership by J. Oswald Sanders. That is an excellent book, not only for leaders, but all believers.
Yeah.
Everyone in here is a leader in some type of way.
Right.
The question is, what type of leader are you? Someone somewhere is watching and following you by your leadership.
That's right.
In this book, the author said, all people were his concern. A person's wealth or poverty, status or intellect had no bearing on Paul's concern for him.
Right.
God used a donkey. And some of the stuff that God gave me, Pastor was speaking on last Sunday. I'll be reading from Numbers chapter 22, verses 21 through 35. Sorry, y'all. When I sweat, my nose runs. Okay, 21 through 35. Balaam got up in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the princes of Moab. But God was very angry when he went, and the angel of the Lord stood in the road to oppose him. Sometimes when, like I said, these attacks happen, you know, I lost sight of what the big picture was. It was
Right.
God, because I should have known, like, God got my back. You're going to get through this.
Amen.
This is just nothing but a dark. But right now, I let that consume me
Yeah.
instead of God and just being a blessing. So you have to remember that.
Right.
But Balaam was riding on his donkey, and his two servants were with him. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with a drawn sword in his hand, she turned off the road into a field. Balaam beat her to get back on the road. Then the angel of the Lord stood in a narrow path between two vineyards with walls on both sides. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she pressed close to the wall, crushing Balaam's foot against it, so he beat her again. Then the angel of the Lord moved on ahead and stood in a narrow place where the place was no room to turn, either to the right or to the left. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she lay down under Balaam, and he was angry and beat her with his staff. Then the Lord opened the donkey's mouth and said to Balaam, "What have I done to you to make you beat me these 3 times?" Balaam answered the donkey, "You have made a fool of me. If I had a sword in my hand, I would kill you right now." That was me. The donkey said to Balaam, "Am I not your own donkey, which you have always ridden to this day? Have I been in the habit of doing this to you?" "No," he said. Then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with his sword drawn. So he bowed low and fell his face down. The angel of the Lord asked him, "Why have you beaten your donkey these 3 times? I have come here to oppose you because your path is reckless. One before me." God will stop us, and he will use anything or anyone because he loves us.
Right.
The donkey saw me and turned away from me these 3 times. If she had not turned away, I would certainly have killed you by now. But I would have spared her. Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, "I have sinned. I did not realize you were standing in the road to oppose me. Now, if you are displeased, I will go back." The angel of the Lord said to Balaam, go with the men, but speak only what I tell you. So Balaam went with the princes of Balak. God used Moses, who didn't have the best speech. He used Paul, who was Saul when he was persecuting Christians.
Yep.
What's your excuse why God can't use you?
All right.
Or why you can't be what he wants you to be? God knew that we couldn't do this on our own, so that's why he sent Jesus to die on a cross for
Right.
us.
Amen.
All God wants for us is to be a willing vessel.
Yep.
Too many times when things get hard, we want to flight and not fight. God gave us that response, that fight or flight.
Amen.
Right.
But so many times we want to avoid, we want to run away.
Right.
I couldn't sleep because of my mind going back and forth of fighting or flying. So like I was saying, I was watching my shows till I got distracted and sleepy. But when I woke up, it was back to square one because we cannot escape God.
Right.
You know, during our sleep, nowhere. And that's, for me, that's even more frustrating because sometimes we just want to, you can't hide. So until you let him have your way or have his way,
Right.
you're going to be miserable. And all the shows, all the smoking, all the drinking, all the shopping, all the gambling, all the sex, you name it. He's still there.
Right.
Let him in.
Yeah. Amen.
Your word needs to be your bond. And as much as I wanted to quit, like I said, I couldn't. And like I said, that's one thing that helps me out is if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And if I don't, it has to be, it's truly, it has to be something major. Because like I said, I knew I was not going to come up here to speak. The only way I'd have to be dead or in the hospital. But just like I said, at that time, it was just like I didn't want to deal with it. And we have to let our word be our bond. And I know like church is kind of easy because sometimes we don't per se have to be here, but you do need to be here. You know, when we're, a lot of times like when I first started, and I remember this saw for Paul because we used to teach Sunday school. And I remember that's like one of the things that stuck out to me because we had like a little paper for the kids to color. And it was when God blinded Saul before he turned to Paul, and it just helped us along the way. And then sometimes when we struggle, like I'm not going to church today. But I'm like, oh, I have to do it. Oh, I have to do this. So it helped me to be here. And then sometimes if you ever stay, it's rare, and I'm not trying to brag or make nobody feel bad, but it's the truth. I'm rarely, I don't take off on a Sunday unless I have to be sick or something, but God's been good with that. But there's times I might have had a family function, or sometimes with Chantel we had to miss this year because of volleyball, and I felt kind of bad, but I'm like, God, I said, you know my heart, I'm not here, you know, just to miss. But sometimes when you're out somewhere and when you're so used to church or being in church, you're like, oh, like we will be in church, and church is over. Like we could have been here and been gone. But sometimes when you're gone, you may think it's forever, but you know, we need one another. Because sometimes when you're going through some things, or somebody might say, how you doing? Or, you know, I'm down, and they'll just know. We can't forsake the fellowship
Right.
of one another.
Right.
And yes, there are certain leaders like in this church, but everyone in here is a leader. You know, you're counted. You're part of the body.
Right.
You know, your brain is very important, but so is your heart.
Yeah.
You know, like my pinky toe, like it hurts, or this little heel spur, this bone I got, that little spur on the bottom of my heel, that hurts.
Yeah.
That sometimes like illuminates everything.
Yeah.
So don't feel like you're insignificant just because you're not the pastor. Be glad, unless God is calling you.
That's true.
Because, to be a pastor is a privilege and an honor. And for me, I don't recall saying I ever wanted to be a pastor's wife. I don't think I had a choice. But on another note, but it is a blessing, it is a privilege, and it's an honor. And I thank God for Pastor and Kathy, because they're humble. Sometimes in our black churches, they love titles. And, I'm this. But no, I feel like I'm just me, and there's times I'm like, I want to say something, then I'm like, I can't. And then I was talking to Allison one time. She was like, well, you're the pastor's wife. But I'm like, thanks for reminding me. But I'm like, but I'm me. But I know with that, it comes expectations.
Yeah,
Regardless.
that's right.
So, but be grateful for where you're at, and don't feel like even if you're not a leader or if you don't have a title, you're just as important.
That's
Because
right.
your face, look, there's empty seats, so the people that aren't here, they're missed. But
Yeah.
if God has called you to something, He will equip you.
That's
He
right.
gives us that, your heart's beating for a reason, so we can get out there and get it over with. Because
That's
until you don't, you're going to keep feeling that.
All right.
To stop putting limitations on God and yourself. He is the one who equips us. He causes us to rely on Him like never before, and to humble ourselves when we are willing to be used by Him despite of our fears.
Right.
When God might call you to speak, or pastor calls you to speak, or pastor might want you to lead something, or something's happened with a loved one, you will call on God like never before.
Amen.
Like we expect Him to answer us, but we should be willing just as well.
Yeah.
Which brings us to our last letter in mother, which is R for riches. I'm not going to use the definition referring to money, but if God blesses you with riches, be a good steward over it.
Amen.
Valuable natural resources that's plentiful and abundant. That's the riches I'm talking about.
Amen.
Valuable natural resources.
Right.
So we're all rich because we all have valuable natural resources. Sometimes we take it for granted. And you can look at sometimes the stars, you're like, oh, if I only had that money. But truthfully, our attitudes would change.
Right.
Our priorities would change, because when you have money, it's easy to get what you want. I could pay somebody, because the dollar speaks. We might pray a little less because now I can afford to pay that.
Yeah.
And Pastor had mentioned that easy about it's harder for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to give up his riches. And I was reading something somewhere, in the Enter into Eternal. Yes. But I was reading somewhere, and it was, I can't think of word from word, but the gist was, there was a pastor, and they said they was looking for a job, and there was 2 churches. And what was a church? And he said, I have the perfect job for you. And I guess this church would have been the dream job. They had plenty people, big congregation, the money was good, there didn't seem like a lot of needs presented. And he said, that's not the church for me.
Right.
He wanted the church with the less people, the
Right.
greater need, and less money. Because sometimes it's easy, to a point, it's easy to minister to somebody who looks good or smells good and may look calm to you. But sometimes for them people on the outside, they may look good, but they're so,
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
I don't need anybody. They can be harder to break down.
Yep.
Where opposed to somebody who may not look good, that might be homeless, that might be out there, they're more willing to surrender. So we cannot be judgmental. And
Right.
one of my, I remember when Chantal was a baby, I always wanted her to be a blessing. And I always praised that. So there was a group of ladies, a lady used to bring in, and they were recovering addicts, and some of them didn't have their children. And, they didn't look the best or whatever. And she was a new baby, you don't want germs and stuff. And I remember my brother, they said, oh, can I hold her? And I said, sure. And my brother was like, you shouldn't really let them in her. And I said, I know. I said, but if I ask God to allow her to be a blessing, I cannot take that back.
All right.
Because some of them, they might have lost their child to the system, and that's what they needed, at that time. So, and just I was telling my mom, there's this lady, I don't want to go into full detail, but she challenges me sometimes where it's just like, she doesn't always, smell the best, or she doesn't do this, or some of her mannerisms. But, I always treat her with kindness, and, I pray for her, and I talk to her. And she said to me the other day, she said, can you pray for me? And I said, sure. And, and she wasn't groomed, and I could smell her pits, my pits smell too. But I said if she wanted to for me to embrace her, I'm like, I would, because that's what God has called us to do.
Amen.
You know, like, ours is, as much as we may look good and smell good, we stink too.
Yeah,
To
that's
God.
right.
Yeah.
So do we want God to treat us the same way? No. But God, He is our natural resource. His
Yes, He is.
grace and mercies are new every morning.
Thank you, Lord.
We don't have to be rich financially to live a good life.
Right.
See, when we compare ourselves to others, or say, I don't have this, I don't have that, or you know something you want really bad, like I gotta have this, and then you get it, and then it's like, it's not even all what I wanted it to be. Because sometimes we're on to the next. I gotta have this bigger car, or I gotta have this newer phone, or we have, and sometimes, you know, them phone companies, they do put stuff in your phone to make them a little bit more sluggish so you can go out and get them. Or, you know, I want this fancy laptop, because, you know, you get folded over to a tablet and you can touch screen it. Well, it's only good as a person who knows how to use it when it works. The lesson learned, I don't know if I really need all that fancy stuff. And then he's going to tell me, oh, did you look at YouTube to figure out the problem? I said, I don't have time to look on YouTube. I got so many other stuff to be doing. You're YouTube. No. I didn't say that, but I did say I don't have time, because there's so much I need to be doing and so much I need to be reading, where sometimes it's just like it overwhelms me. But God withholds nothing good from us.
Right.
He wants us to exhibit love,
Yeah.
joy,
Yep.
peace,
Yep.
patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness when we're weary,
All right.
faithfulness when we're angry, gentleness to that person who cut us off, gentleness when they're angry, you wanna, and self-control. This, my brothers and sisters, is richness. The fruit of the Spirit is richness.
Yes.
Because we do have self-control. Sometimes we say, oh, I don't have self-control, but we do.
Yes, we do.
Sometimes when you want to slap somebody, do you slap them? Because you have self-control. Sometimes. Then if you didn't, then they deserved it, right? But sometimes we say we can't do a thing when actually we can.
Right.
We just choose not to.
Right.
When we can't do a thing, that means it is out of our control. If you're blind, you can't see.
Yeah.
If you're paralyzed from the waist down, you can't walk. We put limitations on ourselves saying we can't do a thing unless it's something we want to do or it'll benefit us.
Right.
I say I can't help myself, but yes, I can.
Yeah.
I can quit giving into temptation. If you can fast, you can quit overeating. And I'm going to talk about fasting for a minute, because I struggle with that. And it says that some things go out with prayer and fasting. And sometimes it's like, it's just food. But because you can't have it, you know, sometimes it's like when you can't have something, it's like you want it even more. So it's like you say, okay, I'm not eating meat. But you're like, I sure would love to eat this salad. Like whatever it is, it's like you want to give in. And addictions are real. And a lot of times we talk about food addiction, we talk about drug addiction, we talk about alcohol addiction. But there's gambling addiction, you know, there's sex addiction. There's
Right.
people who, they have to look perfect.
Right.
You know, and there's a lot of things that you could be addicted to.
Right.
But so many times we don't, we give in. So, and I know people say, oh, I can't fast. Yes, you can. You just choose not to.
Right.
Now, there might have to be different things, because if you have to take medication and stuff like that, that's different. But when you have to get procedures done, or you got to get blood work done, you have to fast.
Yeah.
Or it's going to kill you
Yeah.
in the natural life. But spiritually, we all have to fast and pray, because that makes you depend on, causes you to hear with God and to have a closer relationship, you know, with Him. And it's putting down, it's crucifying the flesh.
Yeah.
Because basically, you know, so when you're going through that, it's just like, I want this or I want that, but it's like we want to hear from God. And so many times, we want God to do a thing, but all God wants us to do is to commune with Him. He
Yeah.
wants to have that intimate time with Him.
Right.
And for me, don't take this the wrong way, but I do like to pray and read my Bible. I try to do that every morning. And somebody said, is it a routine? I'm like, to a point, yes. But it's also something that I need to do because I might not have given Him the quality that I should have, but I still wanted to just say thank you, Lord, for, waking me up. And for me, I like to lay prostrate before I pray. And there's times where I'm like, okay, I didn't read my Bible. And I used to beat myself up about it, and I try to go back. But as a rule, I do try to pray and read my Bible every day because we need that.
Yes.
Just thinking about it like this. You don't read your Bible, you're not eating today. We're going
All
to
right.
run and read that Bible real quick. But again, it's to have that word so that, when we go through those things or when we witness to other people, we could have that word into us.
Right.
Because we need it.
That's right.
Sorry. We can do all things through Christ who strengthens us.
Right.
Come on.
When we really want to. And people, we can say, I can do all things when we want to. I don't want to do that, so I can't do that. I'm sorry, I just can't. It goes back to that perseverance. Persistence in doing something difficult with delayed success.
Right.
In the book, back to the book Pastor and Kathy blessed us with, it says, a well-ordered life is the fruit of a well-ordered mind.
Yeah.
The life of a leader should reflect the beauty, and orderliness of God. I'm going to read that again. A well-ordered life is the fruit of a well-ordered mind. The life of a leader should reflect the beauty and orderliness of God.
All right.
I want everybody to say, I
I
am
am
a leader
a leader
of Jesus Christ.
of Jesus Christ.
I believe this is the fruit of the Spirit. Leaders, you got the book, start reading the book if you
Yeah.
haven't. And if you started like me and haven't finished, keep reading.
Yeah.
And those who may be interested, get the book yourself or ask the leader to borrow it when you're done. There's so many nuggets, I was writing this, I could write this. It's just a wonderful, wonderful book.
Amen.
And I'll close with this. Those outside the church can see when our lives fall short. We can't hope to lead people to Christ by living a life that's contradicting to what God stands for.
Right.
God doesn't want us to be perfect. And so many times people say, I have to get my life together. And sometimes when we tell people as Christians, oh, come as you are. But then when they come as they are, we knock them down.
Right.
You're doing this, you're dressed like that, you're saying this. Sometimes times are not like what they used to be. When we grew up, we were raised in the church, even though there was a time we didn't go, but we still knew church etiquette. But a lot of people don't know that. Sometimes people, the only time they get to come to church is to a funeral. And then sometimes, or a wedding. But nowadays, sometimes the funeral is at the funeral home. So there's sometimes things need to be addressed right then and there, but we need to be led by the Spirit and pray.
Right.
How do we address these people? Because we need to show them love.
Right.
We need to show them compassion. We
Amen.
need to show them patience. But also, those people out in the world, they know how we ought to act
Yeah.
and behave. So when we aren't behaving in a godly way, they love to throw it up in our face. And by right, God could be using them. Like
Yeah.
He used that donkey. Get yourself together.
Yeah.
People will be less judgmental when we stay humble opposed to being arrogant. And we can be happy and be proud to be a Christian, but we shouldn't be throwing it into people's face. I'm saved. But guess what? Without Christ, you're just like them.
That's right.
You know, that's the difference.
That's right.
We accepted him, you know, he has forgiven them, and that's how we have to forgive others. Because
Yeah.
so many times, I know there's people, and people are gonna be people, like sometimes people are just gonna mock you just because. And I'm not talking about, those type of people. But a lot of people have been hurt from the church because too many times people aren't who they need to be.
That's
And
right.
I feel like there are times when, if, I'll say if Chuck was a pastor, and then we had a son and he was a pastor, and he had a son and he was a pastor, and he had a son. If God has called them, I believe that's the case for some. But that's not the calling for everybody.
Right.
The pastorship, you should not be able to say, you could want to be a pastor, but if God has not called you to be one, you should not be one.
That's right.
Amen.
Because that's a dangerous job,
Yeah.
to be messing with God's people when he hasn't called you to do that.
All right.
But if he has, you know, surrender and lead his people.
Amen.
All God wants from you is a willing spirit.
Yeah.
Yes, Lord, you can use me. If any of you would like prayer to be encouraged, prayer for sickness, or prayer on how to be the leader God would have you to be, would you please come? If there's anybody who need encouragement, I would like to come and pray with you. Come on.